So Robert, I hope you don't get too distracted. There's going to be people coming in, so I'll be inviting them in. So you'll hear that beep, but don't worry about it. It's just me letting someone in.
All right, no problem.
Give it one more minute here. All right, well, let's get started. Thanks everybody for coming to this week's office hours. Today we have the Office of Civil Rights with Robert. We'll be introducing the training, preparing or giving the training today. And go ahead, Robert, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Leon. Aloha, everybody. I'm Robert Hopper at the Office of Civil Rights here with Dan Williams. And today's training is focused on FHWA 1273 from an engineer's perspective. This training is not intended to make engineers labor compliance specialists or EEO investigators. The goal here is to identify practical ways in which you all can help ensure better EEO and labor compliance. We want to focus on various aspects of FHWA 1273 that show up in the field: submittals, daily reports, certified payroll support, wage decisions, job site postings, subcontractor tracking, and EEO awareness. The key message is engineers play a key role because they are the closest to the job site. You all have a better window into who is on site, what work is being performed, whether the records match field conditions, and whether something needs to be elevated. So the central theme for this training is observe, document, and elevate. Most compliance issues begin as facts gathered from the field. Before something becomes a labor compliance finding or an EEO concern, it often starts with something observable: a firm on site, a worker performing a particular type of work, a missing posting, an unfamiliar subcontractor, or a miscategorized worker. Engineers and inspectors are often the first people who can identify those facts and document them in daily reports, field notes, photos, and emails, which later become important compliance data. Engineers do not need to make final determinations about wage classifications, payroll violations, discrimination, or harassment, but they nevertheless need to recognize when something may have FHWA 1273 implications. A useful rule of thumb is this: if the issue involves who is working, what they are doing, how they are being paid, or how they are being treated, it may have compliance implications and should be documented or elevated. Because this is a short training, we are not going to cover every section of FHWA 1273 in depth. Instead, we are focusing on the field-facing pieces most relevant to engineers. We will start by clarifying the engineer's role and where the boundaries are. Then we will move into start of work submittals, certified payroll support, EEO requirements, the engineer checklist, and finally a few short scenarios. The most important question throughout the session is, what do engineers need to receive, notice, record, and route? FHWA 1273 provides a set of contract provisions for federal aid construction contracts. While as of June 10, 2026, FHWA 1273 is no longer a required document, HDOT will continue to deploy it on all federally funded highways projects. HDOT expects this document to be included on all contracts and lower tier contracts. The form itself includes a range of federal requirements. Today, we are focusing on the areas most connected to field compliance. The key areas for engineers are the general flow down requirements that I just mentioned, as well as non-discrimination, non-segregated facilities, Davis-Bacon and related labor standards, overtime requirements, subcontracting and worker assignments, and safety. From an engineer's perspective, the most important takeaways are these. First, the required provisions need to be in the prime contract and must flow down in applicable subcontractors and lower tier subcontractors. Second, the project team should know who is performing work. Daily reports and field records need to be detailed enough to support payroll compliance, review. And lastly, EEO-related concerns observed in the field need to be preserved, flagged, and elevated for review. You all don't need to memorize the whole form. We are here to show you which parts of FHWA 1273 show up in the day-to-day project administration. Okay, here's a pop quiz. The question is, does FHWA 1273 flow down into contracts on projects that use state funds only with no federal aid? Go ahead and put your answer in the chat, yes or no, and we will reveal the answer. Okay. Okay, I think uniformly everybody has answered no, and that is correct. FHWA 1273 is incorporated into federal aid construction contracts and flows down to applicable subs and lower tier subs. A project with no federal aid does not trigger the FHWA 1273 flow down requirement. Okay. Before work begins or before subcontracting work starts, certain documents and information need to be in place. First and foremost, again, FHWA 1273 needs to be included in the prime contract of all federal aid projects, and it needs to flow down to applicable subcontractors and lower tier subcontractors. So if you don't see this form in your subcontracts, please inform the prime that they need to include it. Second, the correct wage determination needs to be included in the solicitation and contract and available to workers. The wage determination establishes the prevailing wage rates and classifications that apply to the project. Also, please note that if more than 90 days elapses between bid opening and contract award, then you need to be sure that you have the most up-to-date wage rate determinations in your specs prior to award. Required postings need to be available and accessible at the job site. That includes wage rates and required EEO or labor-related notices. Posting requirements are not just a technicality. Workers need to have access to information about their rights and applicable wage rates. Be sure that the subcontractors, vendors, lower tier subcontractors are approved before performing work. If a firm is on site performing construction work and no one can identify their approval status or scope, this is a compliance problem waiting to happen. Finally, project contacts should be clear. Engineers should know who the prime contact is, who handles payroll, and who the EEO contact is, as well as who to contact internally when an issue comes up. There should be no unidentified firms performing contract work. Subcontractor tracking is an important component of labor compliance and EEO compliance. When a firm shows up on site, the project record should allow us to answer basic questions. Who is the firm? Who hired them? What scope are they performing? Are they an approved subcontractor, vendor, or lower tier subcontractor? Are their workers covered by certified payroll requirements? And does their role match how they are being described? One common issue is the use of the word vendor. Sometimes a firm may truly be a supplier, or vendor, but if that firm is performing construction labor on site, installing materials, operating equipment, or performing traffic control, or doing other covered work, then we need to look more closely. Engineers do not need to make that determination alone, but if an unfamiliar firm is on site performing work, the engineer should document the firm name, the work observed, the date, the location, and elevate the question. The key question is, can we identify the firm, the scope, the workers, the work location, and approval status from the project record? All right, another pop quiz. An unfamiliar crew is on site, but is not on your approval subcontractor list. Is it okay to let them keep working while you sort the paperwork out later? Go ahead and put your answer in the chat and we will reveal it. Yes, I think Danny Yee is correct. The answer is no. If a new or unfamiliar firm is on site, you need to document and elevate. Do not assume it is fine to wait until later.
Robert, what about if they're like a sub of a sub?
They should be on the they should be known to the engineer and be on the approved list.
Well, sometimes the submittals might not include the sub of the subs, right? Like a second tier, third tier.
That may be, but as far as I know, the engineers should know every firm that's on site, what work they're doing. And, you know, they sort of, you at least need to have knowledge of who is on site and when.
And so when they also submit, you know, their proposal, right, they should be putting, if there's a second tier sub, I believe it's on page P5 or P6. So that's an indicator for us and the engineer, right? So if there's a sub of a sub that's just not, you know, known, that nobody knows, like aware of, it's always best to make sure that we get all that information, because if something happens, they weren't supposed to actually be there. You know, if that'll help prevent everybody from, you know, insulate everybody from any kind of issue. So it's always best to just make sure we know who's supposed to be working on the project and they're authorized to work on the project.
Is that
Yeah.
true even if the sub foreman or the company, the subcontractor company acknowledges that they have sub second or third tier subs working for them?
Oh, if they do, they should always be making sure HDOT knows about this, right? Just so we know who's on site. It's really a safety issue to make sure everybody's knows who's supposed to be there. At least that's coming from our opinion, from the way we're thinking, right? And so if you know, you guys have other documentation, other language from somewhere, you can share that with us. But we're just trying to make sure that everybody on the site is you know, insulated from any type of concern, right? If you don't know who they are.
Thank you,
If I
Dan.
can add something,
Yeah.
Rob, to that. So,
Sure.
Marvin, I think regardless of, you know, whether they're included in this middle or we don't know who they are, I think they need to be documented in the daily diaries regardless. So everyone on site needs to be documented in the daily diary. That is, it's no question. Everything needs to be, every person working on the project, every person who visits the site needs to be documented on your daily diaries. And you know, it's as simple as, you know, adding an observation, a labor observation in your daily diaries, and then it compiles into your daily diary report. So if in question, document it.
I agree totally.
That is a perfect segue, Cord.
One more thing I would add is they're also going to need to have a certificate of insurance for that firm. So, there's going to be, you have to have documentation of that. So that's an upcoming training.
Right. Thank you for that. Daily reports. Daily reports are one of the most important tools engineers have for supporting compliance. An insufficient daily report might say something like, contractor worked on site. That may be enough to show that some work occurred, but it does not help much with labor compliance or EEO review. It does not tell us which contractor or subcontractor was present, how many workers were there, what kind of work they performed, where they worked, and whether the field activity matches certified payroll. A good daily report should at least identify the firm, the approximate crew count, the type of work performed, the work location, equipment used, and any unusual circumstance such as night work, weekend work, overtime, complaints, or disruptions all get logged in Headlight through field books, spreadsheet, and journal features. This level of detailed observation matters because compliance staff may later need to compare daily reports against certified payrolls or subcontractor records. If payroll says one thing and the field record says another, the daily report can help clarify what actually happened. It does not need to be an essay, but the goal is to make the record useful enough that someone later can understand who was on site and what work was performed. Certified payrolls must be submitted to Autodesk within 7 days of the pay date. 100% of all payroll should be reviewed against the certified payroll checklist. Certified payroll is a labor compliance requirement, but engineers play an important supporting role because payroll records should align with the reality on the ground. Engineers should be able to help identify whether the payroll appears consistent with what was observed in the field. Was the required statement of compliance submitted? Was the firm listed on payroll actually on site? Do the worker counts seem plausible? Does the classification generally match the work described in the daily report? Do the hours line up with night work, weekend work, or overtime conditions that the engineer observed? A common red flag is when the daily report shows specialized work such as welding, electrical work, equipment operation, or traffic control, but payroll lists workers under a classification that do not correspond to the work indicated in the daily report. Engineers do not need to resolve the issue, but they should document the field facts and elevate the inconsistency to OCR. Okay, another pop quiz. Must certified payrolls be submitted within 7 calendar days of the pay date? Go ahead and put your answer in the chat. Yes. All right. Yes, the answer is yes. Certified payrolls must be submitted within 7 days of the pay date, reviewed against the certified payroll checklist, and uploaded via Autodesk Forma. Okay, these are resources for getting a better understanding of best practices for creating daily journal reports, as well as technical help on getting it up on Autodesk Forma and Headlight. You should be able to click the links. These slides will also be accessible to you, so you should be able to access them later if needed. Let's see, Marvin has a question. Okay. Marvin asked, does a certified payroll affidavit checklist need to be done every single certified payroll or only when time allows? What does everybody think? Well, that's a question I'll have to take for the record because I'm actually not sure on that. So I will have to get back to you, Marvin, on that one. Okay. Okay.
So yeah.
I think if the project engineer notices that it was submitted later than 7 days, and it's just a one-time thing, I think a helpful reminder would probably be a good idea. But if it becomes like a habit or a chronic problem, that's something that probably should be elevated. Okay. Right. Here are some documentation requirements that go beyond what FHWA 1273 asks of engineers generally. These are the forms that connect field observations to compliance record. One is employee interviews. On every federally funded project, HDOT requires that at least 2 laborers or mechanics be interviewed. Those interviews are documented on Form DOT 4-439 and uploaded to Autodesk. This is not an optional and not a one-time check. It is a project level requirement that needs to be completed and in the system. The interview captures basic information, what the worker is doing, what they are being paid, and whether that matches the certified payroll. If you would like a demonstration of how to conduct these interviews, you can find one on h.wiki, which houses a 2021 EEO training video on EEO and labor compliance. Field office inspection, at least one per project. A field office compliance inspection must be completed using DOT 4-384 or 4-692, depending on the mode. Like the interview form, it goes into Autodesk. The inspection looks at whether the contractor's field office is set up in a way that meets civil rights and labor compliance obligations. Postings, record keepings, accessibility of information to workers. Required postings. EEO and labor compliance posters must be in conspicuous locations, meaning that workers and potential applicants can actually see them without having to ask. If you walk the site and the posters are buried in a trailer, facing a wall, or missing entirely, that is a deficiency that you should document and route. Deficiencies and complaints. If you observe something that doesn't meet these requirements, or if a worker raises a concern, that should be forwarded to OCR. You're not expected to resolve it. You are expected to document it, forward it, and OCR will handle it from there. The bottom line on this slide, all of these forms should be uploaded to Autodesk, and postings must stay visible throughout the life of the project. If anything looks wrong, bring it to OCR's attention. These are tangible things that engineers can notice in the field. Again, required notices and posters should be visible and accessible to workers. If posters are missing, outdated, locked away, or placed somewhere where workers cannot reasonably access them, then that should be elevated. FHWA 1273 includes requirements related to non-segregated facilities. So engineers should be alert to concerns about unequal access to restrooms, changing areas, break areas, or other job site facilities. Engineers should preserve and elevate any complaints or observations involving discrimination, harassment, retaliation, or hostile job site conduct. This includes racial, sexual, ethnic, or other discriminatory comments or conduct. Engineers should not conduct their own EEO investigations. Your role is to listen, document the basic facts, preserve relevant information, and contact OCR as needed. Lastly, engineers may also be asked to support EEO-related reporting, such as FHWA 1391 or on-the-job training, OJT, as well as other workforce documentation where applicable. However, just a note on FHWA 1391, FHWA has informed us that they won't be doing that this year, so you won't be getting your usual annual 1391 forms. All right, one more pop quiz. A worker tells you that they are being harassed on the job. Should you go ahead and investigate it yourself before looping in OCR? Yep, that is correct. The answer is no. Engineers do not conduct EEO investigations. Yes, correct. A document only. You listen, you avoid promising any outcomes, you document the basic facts, and then you contact OCR. Here's a list of all required posters. And I just have one note regarding one item on this list. There is the supplement to EEOC-P. The equal opportunity is the law supplement. This is the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Program supplement that had been tied to the Equal Opportunity Clause for federal contractors under Executive Order 11246, but that executive order has since been revoked by the current administration. So in turn, the Department of Labor has confirmed that it halted all enforcement of EO 11246 regulations because the underlying legal authority no longer exists. So the race and sex affirmative action content tied specifically to EO 11246 is no longer in effect. However, there are portions of that supplement that still stand, including Section 503 dealing with disability and VEVRA, or the Veterans Affirmative Action Law. The wage determination is the document that identifies the applicable prevailing wage classification and rates for the project. From a tangible compliance standpoint, there are three basic concerns. First, the correct wage determination needs to be incorporated in the contract. Second, the wage determination and required notices need to be posted or otherwise made accessible to workers. Third, the project file should preserve evidence that these requirements were met. Engineers should elevate if the wage determination appears missing, outdated, inaccessible, or inconsistent with the contract. For engineers, the main task is to help preserve evidence of compliance, ensuring that the correct wage determination and required postings are available to workers. Here we have for you several situations where engineers should pause and elevate. The first is an unlisted firm. If a crew is performing work but does not appear to be on the approved subcontractor list, then that should be documented and elevated. The second is a payroll mismatch. If field records show specialized work, but certified payroll lists a classification that does not seem to match, that should be flagged. The third is a worker complaint. If a worker reposts unpaid overtime, cash payments, underpayments, or misclassification, or they're being told not to speak with inspectors, that should be documented and elevated. And the fourth is an EEO concern. If a worker reports harassment, retaliation, discrimination, or unequal access to facilities, that must be taken seriously and routed appropriately. The engineer does not need to decide the final answer in the field. The important questions are, what did I see? What did the worker say? Where is it documented, and who needs to know? A consistent escalation process protects everyone involved, the workers, contractors, engineers, the department, and our federal funding. The first step is to observe. That may mean observing a field condition, hearing a worker complaint, noticing an unfamiliar firm, or seeing a mismatch in the records. The second step is to document. Capture the date, the time, the firm, the work activity, the location, and any relevant details. If a worker makes a complaint, document what was reported as accurately and neutrally as possible. The third step is to preserve. That may include daily reports, photos, emails, sign-in sheets, payroll records, subcontractor documents, or meeting notes. The fourth step is to elevate. Depending on the issue, that may mean notifying the project manager, OCR, or another designated contact. The fifth step is to follow up. If there is a correction, clarification, or resolution, make sure the project file reflects what happened. The main point is, when in doubt, elevate early. Early notice makes correction much easier than trying to reconstruct the issue months later. So here's the practical takeaway. Engineers should know what needs to be received or confirmed before and during the project. That includes FHWA 1273 flowdown, the wage determination, required postings, subcontractor approval, and EEO or payroll contacts. Engineers should also focus on daily documentation. Daily reports should identify the firms on site, the approximate crew count, work performed, locations, equipment, complaints, and unusual hours. Finally, engineers should know what to elevate. That includes unapproved subcontractors, payroll mismatches, worker wage complaints, EEO or harassment concerns, and missing postings. The larger message is that field compliance is not about trying to catch contractors doing something wrong. It is about making sure the project record can prove what happened. A clean, accurate project record protects the department, supports workers, and gives contractors a fair process if questions arise. And here are some main reference points. Form FHWA 1273 is the starting point for required contract provisions on federal aid construction contracts. The current version was revised October 23rd, 2023. There is the Department of Labor wage hours, WH-347 guidance is useful for certified payroll requirements and the statement of compliance. And then FHWA Form 1391, which won't be relevant this year, is tied to annual EEO reporting for federal highway construction contractors. Finally, HDOT and OCR procedures should control internal routing, deadlines, approval workflows, and project documentation standards, and you can easily locate these guidelines and procedures on HDOT Wiki. The closing message is the same as the opening message. Engineers do not need to be compliance experts, but they do need to observe, document, and elevate. And is there any questions? I think there might be a couple in the chat.
I think you answered all of them. There was an unrelated question outside of this topic.
The scope. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Hey guys, I got a comment. This
yeah.
is with Federal Highways. Thank you. I know this is like the less than sexy part of the job we do, you guys do, but it's actually pretty critical, and you guys do it without thinking. But this training is actually much appreciated. About a month ago, actually May 31st, it was due. I did an audit of 36 HDOT jobs where we checked, a handful of things here where I checked, and we scored well. Let's just say that. But I did find a lot of things. But in the interest of kind of protecting the work you guys do, which I know there's much more complicated and complex parts of your job, right? We made it through that audit. But it's because of these kinds of trainings that I can push us through that audit with confidence. So I just wanted to thank you guys for one, doing the job, but two, training on it. It allows me to point to, we came out with a pretty good score, and I'm able to point to these kinds of trainings as the reason you guys have a good score. It wasn't, there were things I found that, I was able to work around through a couple of phone calls, quote unquote verification that I had to do. But again, 36 jobs that were ran through 2023 and 2025. So over the course of 2 years, where I checked each and everything on those jobs. So it is being looked at. You guys don't hear about it because I do think that there's much more, challenging things that you guys deal with and should focus on. But this is something that needs to be taken care of, and you guys are doing that. Again, still, even though it's not important, you guys emphasizing it and paying attention to detail, kind of how you guys was training on here. It allows me to do that. So thanks for that. And with all that said, can Leon or someone, can you guys send me a quick email with this training? I know it's linked everywhere, but it'd be helpful to me if you just sent me the link to the wiki site, an attachment of the training, today's training, because again, it spoke directly to like 6 of the 10 questions in the recent audit, and it's an audit we do every 2 years now. Used to be every year. So it'll allow me to easily forward to the handful of folks. Because after I did my review, believe it or not, it got double checked, right? Because, right, like I said, I did make some phone call verifications, and so people were in disbelief that we had passed with the high score. And I don't just, I understand where they're coming from. But this today's training would allow me to say, see, this is why I was confident that with a couple of phone calls, we scored higher than other states. So yeah, Leon or someone, if you guys could just shoot me an email, the link to this training, this slide deck, and yeah, I'll screenshot a couple and send it off to my auditors. Yeah, I got audited for 3 days on my review, where they checked pretty much every question and the attachments that were sent. And then I had to verify that where things didn't line up on paper, how I was able to verify. So believe it or not, we're looking at it. So guys, thank you. This training came at a perfect time.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you
so
for that.
we will be uploading this to the wiki site, and then once that's up there, I will forward it to you, Kaha.
Awesome. Yeah, link, and I'll forward that email and say, see, we do pay attention to this stuff. And that's why we got a good grade. Well, that and a couple other reasons. But knowing we're paying attention to it going forward, for me is really what it's about. So thanks, guys.
For sure. Thank you for that. Are there any other comments or questions?
Hey, Robert.
Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you guys, you and Dan. Great presentation as always. I did have a quick question that may be on a few's minds, and I know Marvin kind of touched on it early, but I was just wondering, like, because I know for me, I've had it come up a few times where a contractor is saying that it's not a subcontractor, it's actually a vendor. I can't think of a real specific example of it, but I know it's come up a few times. I don't know if you guys have like an easy answer to that, like if it's,
Yeah.
service versus sub or whatever, or like doing actual work, but that may help the group.
We've had that issue too, where because we have to get subcontractor and vendor data from the primes, and some people think that they have to show us the Menehune man, the Menehune water delivery guy has to be included. And the standard that Dan and I use is any firm that contributes work or materials that contribute to the specs of the project, to fulfilling the requirements in the specs. So if they contribute to fulfilling the requirements in the specs, then they should be documented and we should know about that.
Okay. That makes sense. And then I guess it is kind of gray sometimes. So could we use the concept of if in doubt, reach out to you guys?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And Dan is going to put our information in the chat. And if anybody has any questions or would like to discuss anything, then please don't hesitate to reach out to OCR.
And then
Excellent.
can I just make a quick comment about our contact information? So my contact information is there, Robert Hoppers is there, and Lisa Terry Chang's is there. That's our whole office, but in for this aspect, it's really myself and Robert. If you do go to Lisa's just gonna go ahead and forward that question to us. So we just wanted to give you all of our contact information, but really when it comes to this kind of stuff, it would be Robert and myself. So thank you. Thanks, Robert.
So
Yeah, on behalf
one
of
thing I would,
OCR, thank you for
okay.
attending this training.
Thank you. Appreciate it. One thing I will add is we are going to review the rubrics that we established for our upcoming COCUA review. We're actually reviewing all of them, but in particular, we'll review these, especially with some new standards coming out from FHWA. So, but stay tuned, stay in touch. We'll keep you guys in touch on what it will be, but we will be performing another COCUA review in August. And you'll probably hear that a lot for the next few weeks up until we do it. But yeah, we will be updating that, what we're looking for when we do the review. So any other questions? All right, guys. Thank you very much, and everybody have a happy and safe 4th of July.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Aloha.
Aloha.